What does the testing of Joseph say about our own personal lives? And how does it help us? Let's recap yesterday's sermon and bring some application for our everyday life, shall we? So, Jim preached on Genesis 39, and that's where Joseph is being brought to Egypt as a slave. And he's been sold to a guy called Potiphar. He is an official of the Pharaoh, and he starts to work there. Potiphar puts him just as a normal slave, but he very quickly watches him and sees that God is with him. It says in verse 2, the Lord was with Joseph, and he became a successful man. And he was in the house of his Egyptian master, and his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord caused all that he did to succeed in his hands. And so he gives him more and more influence. That's actually the first test. How do you respond when you're blessed? That can be a test. But there's a limit. There's the wife of Potiphar. Joseph in the end becomes basically the steward of the whole house. And that means everything is under him except the wife. Now the wife sees Joseph, and Joseph is very handsome. And she decides to, she wants to sleep with him. She says, "Lay with me." But he refused and said to his master wife, "Behold, because of me, my master has no concerns about anything in the house, and he has put everything that he has in my charge. He's not greater in this house than I am, nor has he kept back anything from me except you." And so then he says, how would I do this great wickedness and sin against God? This is the interesting thing. Joseph's second test is not just the blessing, it's also the limits. Can he live with the limits? And he sees God in everything. That's so interesting. And then one day, this woman actually tries to basically assault him. And he runs away, Paul says, flee from immorality. That's what he does. He runs away. And she holds onto his garment. And so she uses it as a proof that he has assaulted her when it was actually the other way around. Now, Joseph gets in this harsh situation that even though he did the right thing in the sight of God, it's actually not blessing him. He is thrown into jail. And then in verse 21, it says again, "But the Lord was with Joseph, and he showed him steadfast love and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison." And again, he becomes in charge of everything. Favor of God is sometimes like you become like a cork. Wherever you are and you put underwater, you just pop up. But that's not the real test. The test is in everywhere, does Joseph actually obey the Lord? That's a test. And the harsh reality of testing in our faith is that often we don't know we're getting tested. It doesn't say God told Joseph, "Look, you're going to get tested." Sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't. Being tested sometimes means it's just hard. Being tested sometimes means you're just being blessed. Being tested sometimes means you're presented a limit and the temptation to cross it. All these different tests are there to see if Joseph has the right character for what God actually has in store for him ultimately. The point that Jim was making is that integrity is tested in secret. It's when no one watches, when there seemingly are no repercussions. Joseph could have maybe continued to, cross the borders with Potiphar's wife. He would have lived a life of comfort. But he chose to do what was right in the eyes of God. And God ultimately rewards him beyond that. Now, here is the application, very simply. When you face a blessing, can you see that it is from the Lord? When you face temptation, can you see that God is with you still? And when you face trials and hardship, can you see that God is with you in it? Look for God in every circumstance. God bless you guys. Have a wonderful week.